The problem with pretending to care about someone is that eventually you might stop pretending. Chapter 1. Alejandro Ruiz didn't believe in second chances, not in publishing, and certainly not in love. Yet here he sat, in his corner office overlooking Gran Via, Madrid's beating heart spread beneath him like a promise he'd stop believing in. The city buzzed with late afternoon energy, tourists snapping photos, locals rushing to after-work drinks, the sun painting everything gold. Inside, his office felt cold despite the Mediterranean heat pressing against the windows. "You want me to do what?" He didn't raise his voice. Alejandro never raised his voice. 38 years old, CEO of Ediciones Iberia, one of Spain's most prestigious publishing houses, he'd learned that power whispered. His PR director, Carmen, stood her ground. "Mentor him, publicly. Diego Vega needs a redemption arc, and you need... I don't need anything. You need the board to stop questioning your judgment." Carmen's eyes were sympathetic, but firm. "After the Torres disaster, after your personal life made the gossip columns, they're worried. They think you're distracted, reckless." Alejandro's jaw tightened. The Torres disaster. A €1 million book deal for a celebrity memoir that turned out to be half fabricated. And his personal life? That was code for Mateo, his ex-partner of 5 years who'd left him 6 months ago. The press had caught wind of the breakup, though they'd never known the relationship existed until it ended. Mateo had made sure of that, selling their story the moment he walked out the door. "Diego Vega is a liability," Alejandro said. "He leaked confidential manuscripts to competitors. He's been blacklisted by half the publishers in Spain. But he's also brilliant. 26 years old, and he was editing books that won national prizes before he imploded. The scandal wasn't entirely his fault. Her former boss threw him under the bus to cover her own tracks. The industry knows it, but no one will touch him." Carmen leaned forward. "You mentor him, guide him back. It shows you're stable, generous, a leader. It shows the board you're thinking about the company's future, not dwelling on the past." It's a publicity stunt. It's strategy, and it'll work. We announce it next week, document the mentorship journey on social media. 6 months, that's all we need. He gets a second chance, you get your reputation back. Everyone wins. Alejandro turned to the window. Below, Madrid moved on, indifferent to his problems. He thought about Mateo's last words. "You never let anyone see the real you. You're so busy being perfect, you forgot how to be human." Maybe that was true. Maybe he had. "Fine," he said. "Set up the meeting." Diego Vega arrived at Ediciones Iberia at 9 a.m. sharp, which meant that he'd been awake since 5, too anxious to sleep. The building was everything he remembered from the industry's better days. Marble floors, walls lined with book covers from a century of Spanish literature, the smell of paper and coffee. He'd once dreamed of working here. Now he was walking in through the back door, a charity case. The receptionist led him to the top floor. Alejandro's office was glass and light, minimalist except for the books. Hundreds of them, organized by color in a way that should have looked pretentious, but somehow didn't. And there, behind the desk, was the man himself. Alejandro had seen photos. Everyone had. Alejandro Ruiz was regularly featured in business magazines, always impeccably dressed, always composed. But photos didn't capture the intensity of his presence. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair graying at the temples, and eyes that assessed you like a manuscript he was deciding whether to publish. He wore a navy suit that probably cost more than Diego's rent, no tie, top button undone in a concession for the heat. "Mr. Vega," Alejandro stood, extended a hand. His grip was firm, brief. "Please, sit." Diego sat. His jeans and white button-down suddenly felt too casual, too young. "Thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Ruiz. I know my reputation. Let's be clear about what this is." Alejandro's voice was smooth, cultured, absolutely certain. "This is a 6-month arrangement. You'll work here as an assistant editor, and I'll mentor you. We'll be photographed together, do some interviews, create content for social media. In return, you get a chance to rebuild your career. Do you understand?" "You mean it's fake?" I mean, it's transactional. Whether you learn anything, whether you actually deserve a second chance, that's up to you. He opened the folder. You'll be working on our fall poetry collection, anthology of contemporary Spanish poets exploring love, loss, forbidden desire, lost. I assume you can handle that without leaking it to our competitors. The jab landed, but Diego kept his expression neutral. I never leaked anything intentionally. My former boss gave me a manuscript, told me to send it for external review. I didn't know she made a deal to pass it to a rival publisher. When it came out, she said I did it. No proof either way, so she had seniority, and you didn't. Alejandro's eyes flickered with something that might have been understanding. I read the investigative piece. I know what probably happened. But the industry doesn't care about probably. They care about liability. And you're taking a liability on. Why? For a moment, he didn't answer. Then, because Kahneman thinks it's good PR. And because I was 26 once, watching my career almost end before it started. Someone gave me a chance. I hated owing them, but I owed them anyway. It was the most honest thing anyone in the industry had said to Diego in a year. I won't waste your time, Diego said. Whatever this is, fake or not, I'll do the work. Good. We start tomorrow, 9 a.m. And Diego, Alejandro's gaze was sharp. Don't be late. I don't do second chances to second chances. Chapter 2. The announcement went live 3 days later. Ediciones Iberia CEO Alejandro Ruiz to mentor rising editor Diego Vega. The press release was perfect, gracious without being condescending, hopeful without being naive. Kahneman had crafted it like a novel's opening line, designed to make people care, and they did. Within hours, industry blogs were analyzing it. By evening, it was trending on Spanish Twitter. This is either the most generous thing ever or the best PR move I've seen. Alejandro Ruiz giving second chances? Character development. Diego Vega is 26 and gorgeous, just saying. The mentorship began quietly. Mornings in Alejandro's office going through poetry submissions for the anthology. The poets wrote about love in all its forms. Desperate, tender, forbidden, lost. Diego would read a piece aloud, and Alejandro would listen with his eyes closed, fingers steepled, perfectly still. What do you think? Alejandro asked after a particularly raw poem about two men meeting in secret, stealing moments in a world that refused to see them. It's honest. It hurts to read, but in a good way, like it's true even if it never happened to you personally. Should it be in the collection? Yes, definitely. Alejandro opened his eyes. Why? Because people need to know they're not alone. When you're hiding who you are, when you're loving someone in the margins, you feel like you're the only one. A poem like this says you're not. That's worth publishing. Something shifted in Alejandro's expression. You're right. We'll include it. They fell into a rhythm. Work in the morning, lunch at the tapas bar around the corner where Alejandro was a regular, and the owner greeted him with a warmth that suggested he was more than just a good tipper. Diego learned that he drank his coffee black, that he had opinions on everything from Oxford commas to Catalan independence, that he listened more than he spoke, but when he spoke, it mattered. And then there were the photo opportunities. Kahneman scheduled them carefully. Casual shots of them reviewing manuscripts in a sunny cafe, deep in conversation at a book launch, laughing over wine at an industry dinner. Diego felt like a performer learning his marks. Stand here, smile there, look engaged but not too eager. Let Alejandro take the lead. The internet ate it up. A fan account appeared, at Alejandro and Diego, posting every photo with increasingly insane captions. The way Alejandro looks at him in this one, I'm sick. CEO and his protege, or CEO and his future husband. I'm shipping real people and I don't even care. People think we're together, Diego said one afternoon, scrolling through the tags. Alejandro glanced at his phone, expression unreadable. People are idiots. Does it bother you, the speculation? Should it? Diego shrugged. You're private. I've noticed. You never talk about your personal life in interviews. And after your ex sold that story, he regretted it immediately. Alejandro's face went blank, the warmth draining out of the room. My personal life is not up for discussion. The words were ice, and if you're smart, you won't bring it up again. I'm sorry, I just meant, I know what you meant. Alejandro stood, gathering his papers. We're done for today. See you tomorrow. Diego left feeling like he'd failed a test he hadn't known he was taking. That night, he couldn't sleep. His apartment in Lavapiés was small but his. The windows open to let in the sounds of Madrid at night, distant music, conversations in a dozen languages, the city that never quite rested. He lay in bed thinking about Alejandro's face when he'd mentioned Mateo. Diego had read the articles. Mateo Reyes, a photographer, had sold his story to a gossip magazine. My 5 years with publishing's most powerful closet case. Cruel, exposing, designed for maximum damage. The piece had revealed Alejandro's sexuality to an industry that thought it knew him, painted him as cold and controlling, a man who loved his reputation more than the person beside him. The backlash had been swift. Happy industry defended Alejandro. His personal life was his own. The outing was unforgivable. The other half questioned his judgment. If he'd hidden a relationship for 5 years, what else was he hiding? Could he be trusted? Diego understood hiding. He'd spent his teenage years in a small town outside of Valencia, knowing he was different, knowing that different was dangerous. He'd fled to Madrid at 18, found freedom and community and himself, but that fear never quite left. The knowledge that who you loved could be used against you. Maybe that's why he felt protective of Alejandro, this man who seemed untouchable but clearly wasn't. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. This is Alejandro. I apologize for today. My past is difficult, but you didn't deserve that response. AR. Diego stared at the message. Alejandro Ruiz had just apologized to me. Alejandro Ruiz had just admitted vulnerability. He typed back, "No apology needed. See you tomorrow." The response came quickly. "Bring ideas. The anthology needs a title." Diego smiled despite himself. Even an apology, Alejandro was all business. Chapter 3. The anthology became their shared obsession. They spent hours debating title, theme, order. Alejandro wanted something classic, elegant. Diego pushed for something raw, more immediate. They argued over wine in Alejandro's office after everyone else had gone home. The Madrid skyline glittering beyond the windows, the intimacy of disagreement drawing them closer. Amor Improhibido, Diego suggested. Forbidden love. It's direct. It's a telenovela title. It's honest. That's what half these poems are about. Love that has to hide, that the world says shouldn't exist. Alejandro considered this, swirling wine in his glass. He had removed his jacket, loosened his collar. This late in the evening, some of his careful control slipped. And the other half? A loss. But a loss of something forbidden feels different, doesn't it? Like you're grieving twice. Once for what you lost, once for never being allowed to show you lost it. The silence stretched. Alejandro's eyes were on him, intense and searching. "That's good," he finally said. "Use that for the introduction." "You want me to write the introduction?" "I want us to write it together, Diego." Alejandro refilled his glasses. "This isn't just my project anymore, Diego. You've earned that." Something warmed unfurled in Diego's chest. Pride, yes, but also something more complicated. The way Alejandro looked at him in these moments, like he was worth listening to, worth knowing, it made him want things he shouldn't want. The mentorship was trending harder now. Carmen was thrilled. They'd been featured in El País with the headline, "The Publishing CEO Teaching Second Chances Through Poetry." The article included photos from their working sessions, Diego laughing at something Alejandro said, Alejandro's rare smile captured mid-moment. The comment section was chaos. "They're definitely sleeping together. Why does this feel like watching a romance novel happen in real time? That's his mentor, y'all, are sick. Age gap is only 12 years, calm down. The sexual tension in these photos could power Madrid." Diego tried to ignore it. Alejandro never mentioned it, so neither did he. But he felt it. The weight of strangers' fantasies. The way every interaction was now scrutinized for hidden meaning. And the terrible truth was that some of their fantasies weren't far off. Diego was attracted to him. Of course he was. Alejandro was brilliant, powerful, unexpectedly kind beneath the cold exterior, and sometimes, late at night, when they were alone, Diego caught him looking with an expression that made his heart stutter. But it wasn't real. It was just proximity, just a performance bleeding into life. It had to be. One Friday evening, Alejandro surprised him. "Come with me," he said, as we were packing up. "There's something I want to show you." They took Alejandro's car, a sleek black Audi that smelled like leather and expensive cologne, and drove north out of the city. Diego didn't ask where they were going. He was learning that Alejandro revealed things in his own time, that patience was rewarded. They ended up in El Escorial, the historic monastery palace looming against a darkening sky, but Alejandro didn't take him to the tourist sites. Instead, they walked to a small cafe tucked into a side street, warm light spilling from its windows. "Mateo and I used to come here," Alejandro said quietly, "when we wanted to be away from Madrid, away from people who might recognize us." Diego's breath caught. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you asked about him. Because I was cruel when you did and you deserve better." Alejandro's profile was sharp against the cafe's glow. They sat outside beside the chill, ordered coffee that arrived strong and perfect. Alejandro talked and Diego listened. "We met at a gallery opening. I was 32, too focused on work, convinced I didn't have time for relationships. He was a photographer, talented, completely alive in a way I wasn't. He made me laugh, made me remember there was more to life than quarterly reports and acquisition deals. You loved him." "I did. But I also kept him secret, never brought him to company events, never posted photos, never introduced him to colleagues. I told myself it was about privacy, about professionalism. But the truth is, I was afraid. Afraid the board would see me differently. Afraid the industry would question my authority. Afraid of being known." Diego's throat was tight. "That's not your fault. The world makes us afraid." "Maybe, but I made him feel like a dirty secret. 5 years of stolen moments, separate lives, love in the margins. When he finally left, when he sold that story, I was angry, humiliated. But I understood. I'd humiliated him first, every day, by being ashamed." "You weren't ashamed of him." "No, I was ashamed of myself for being weak enough to care what they thought." Alejandro's eyes met his. "I'm telling you this because our mentorship, this whole arrangement, it's based on hiding too, pretending. And I'm tired, Diego. I'm tired of performing." Diego's heart was pounding. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't know anymore, where the performance ends and the truth begins." Alejandro's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "I'm saying, when I look at you, I forget this is supposed to be fake." The world narrowed to this, the cafe's warm light, Alejandro's confession hanging between them, the space suddenly too small and too vast all at once. "Alejandro, we should go." He stood abruptly, leaving money on the table. "I apologize. That was inappropriate. You're my mentee. This is professional. I shouldn't have..." Diego stood too, catching his arm. "Stop, please." They stood there, frozen, Diego's hand on Alejandro's sleeve. Around them, El Escorial carried on. Couples walking past, tourists taking photos, life continuing while there's balance on a knife's edge. "I don't want it to be fake either," Diego said. Alejandro's eyes were storm dark, full of want and fear and something that looked like hope. "We can't," he said. But he didn't move away. "Why not?" "Because I'm your mentor. Because there's a power imbalance. Because the press will destroy us both if this went wrong. Because I'm not good at this, Diego. I ruin the things I love. Or maybe you just haven't found someone willing to stay." Diego's hand slid down to Alejandro's, their fingers threading together. "Let me stay." "This is a terrible idea." "I know. Carmen will kill us." "Probably. The internet will lose their minds." "Definitely," Diego smiled. "But they're already shipping us. Might as well give them what they want." Alejandro laughed, surprised and helpless. Then he pulled Diego closer and Diego forgot how to breathe. "If we do this," Alejandro said, "it's not for the cameras, not for the story. It's real or it's nothing." "Real," Diego agreed. They kissed there on the cobblestone street, El Escorial's ancient stones bearing witness to one more beginning. It was soft at first, questioning. Both of them half convinced this was a dream. Then Alejandro's hand cupped Diego's, and the kiss deepened into something urgent and true, and finally honest. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Diego laughed. So, still just a mentorship? You're absolutely fired as my mentee. Good. I'd rather be your boyfriend anyway. Alejandro kissed him again, and Diego felt like he was falling and flying all at once. They agreed to keep it quiet. At first, not secret, never secret again, but private, learning each other away from cameras and expectations. Diego started staying late at the office, and late turned into overnight. Alejandro's apartment was in Salamanca, all clean lines and art and books, a space that reflected his public image. But in the bedroom, tangled in Egyptian cotton sheets with Madrid lights painting patterns on the ceiling, that image cracked open. Tell me something true, Diego whispered. One night, head on Alejandro's chest, his heartbeat steady beneath Diego's ear. Everything I've told you is true. Something you've never told anyone. Alejandro was quiet for so long, Diego thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I'm terrified, all the time, that I'm not enough, not smart enough, not strong enough, that eventually everyone will see through me and realize I'm just pretending to know what I'm doing. Diego lifted his head, looking at him. In the dim light, Alejandro looked younger, vulnerable in a way he never allowed at work. You, the CEO who made Ediciones Iberia the most profitable publisher in Spain? Especially me. The higher I climb, the further I have to fall. His hand stroked Diego's hair, gentle. You terrify me most of all. Why? Because you see me. Not the CEO, not the mentor, not the carefully constructed image. You see the mess underneath, and you're still here. Diego kissed him, slow and deep. I'm not going anywhere. They made love like it was a conversation. Question and answer, give and take. Alejandro was intense, focused, learning Diego's body the way he learned manuscripts, finding every response that made him gasp. Diego had been with men before, but nothing like this. Nothing that felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff all at once. Afterward, skin to skin in the darkness, Alejandro traced patterns on Diego's spine. We should tell Carmen before she finds out. She's gonna kill us. Probably, but she'll get over it. He pressed a kiss to his Diego's shoulder. I'm not hiding this. Not you. Never again. Carmen did not in fact kill them. She did, however, stare at them in her office for a full minute without blinking. So the mentorship is now a relationship. Yes, Alejandro confirmed.
A real relationship. Very real, Diego added. Carmen pinched the bridge of her nose. Do you know what the internet is going to do when we announce this? Implode? Diego suggested. They're going to accuse us of queer baiting, of faking it for publicity, of confirming every conspiracy theory. They're going to analyze every photo, every interaction, claim they knew it all along, while simultaneously insisting it's PR. Carmen looked at Alejandro. The board is going to have opinions. Let them. Alejandro, I spent 5 years hiding the person I loved. I won't do it again. His hand found Diego's under the table. We'll handle the board. As for the internet, they can think what they want. This isn't for them. Carmen studied them both. Then, slowly, she smiled. You know what? Fine. But we control the narrative. No leaked photos, no gossip magazines. We announce it properly, on our terms. Agreed? They agreed. The announcement went live on a Tuesday afternoon. Not a press release this time. A joint Instagram post from both their accounts. A photo Carmen had taken in Alejandro's office. Diego and him reviewing manuscripts, but this time Alejandro's hand was on Diego's shoulder, and they were both smiling at each other instead at the camera. The caption was simple. What started as mentorship became friendship. Friendship became something more. To everyone who saw it before we did, you were right. Love doesn't follow anyone's rules, not even ours. A and D.
The internet promptly lost its collective mind. The post got 50,000 likes in an hour. Twitter exploded. The shipping accounts declared victory. Entertainment news picked it up. Industry blogs wrote think pieces. Publishing CEO confirms romance with Mentee. From professional to personal, the Alejandro Ruiz love story. Did we just watch a real-life romance novel unfold? The comments were split between celebration and skepticism. This is the best thing I've ever seen. I'm crying. PR stunt called it. They're using queerness for engagement. Who cares if it's PR? It's working. The photo of them smiling at each other, I'm deceased. Age gap relationships are problematic. Fight me. Nah, this is cute actually. Let them be happy. Diego read the comments in Alejandro's apartment that evening, both of them curled on the couch with wine and takeout paella. They think we're lying, he said. Some of them are just happy. Alejandro kissed his temple. We know the truth. That's what matters. And the board? Emergency meeting tomorrow, but I'm the CEO and our numbers are up 15% since he started. They'll complain, but they won't do anything. Diego set his phone aside, turning to face him fully. No regrets? About you? Never. About hiding for so long every day. But that ends now. They kissed, deep and sure, the city lights of Madrid glittering beyond the windows like a promise. Chapter 5. The board meeting was exactly as unpleasant as expected. This is a conflict of interest, Martinez, the oldest board member, argued. He was your employee, your mentee. The optics are terrible. Diego's no longer my mentee. He's been promoted to junior editor working with the fiction department. He reports to Jimenez, not me. There is no conflict. The media will say you groomed him. The media can say what they want. The timeline is clear. Mentorship was professional. Relationship began after the mentorship ended. Everything was appropriate. But the appearance, Alejandro interrupted, his voice sharp now, is that two adults in the same industry developed feelings and handled it correctly. And frankly, I'm tired of worrying about appearances. Our numbers are the best they've been in 5 years. Diego's work on the poetry anthology is exceptional. My personal life is my own. If you have a problem with that, I'll accept your resignation, effective immediately. Silence. Alejandro had never played that card before, but then he'd never had something worth protecting before. Martinez backed down. We'll revisit this at the next quarterly review. You do that. The poetry anthology launched in November, just as autumn turned Madrid's trees gold and red. They called it Entre Sombras y Luz, between shadow and light. The introduction, written by both of them, spoke about love that exists in liminal spaces, not quite hidden, not quite free, learning to step into the light. The launch party was at a gallery in Malasaña. Wine flowing, poets reading their work, the crowd a mix of industry professionals and the poets themselves. Diego stood with Alejandro, their shoulders touching, no longer worried about who saw or what they thought. One of the poets, an older woman named Lucia, who'd written about loving another woman in Franco, Spain, approached them. Thank you, she said, for letting our stories be told. Thank you for trusting us with them. She smiled, eyes crinkling. And thank you for your story. The introduction, I cried. To see two men in this industry in love, unafraid, you don't know what that means to people like me. To see how far we come. After she left, Diego felt Alejandro's hand find his, fingers lacing together. Still terrified? Diego asked quietly. Always, but less so with you. The anthology sold out its first printing in 2 weeks. The reviews were stellar. And more importantly, Diego started receiving messages from young editors, from queer kids in small towns, from people who saw themselves in those poems and in the story of the two men who'd compiled them. Thank you for showing me it's possible. Your story gave me hope. I came out to my parents because of you two. Diego showed them to Alejandro one evening, both of them exhausted from a long day but content. We didn't mean to become a symbol, Alejandro said. No, but maybe it's not so bad. Being proof that things can work out. Even when they start fake? Diego grinned. Especially then. Best PR stunt ever. Alejandro pulled him close, kissing him thoroughly. Technically, this would be a terrible PR stunt. The whole point was to look professional and stable. And instead, you fell in love with your mentee. Very scandalous. Very. Another kiss. Carmen would say we failed spectacularly. Carmen would say we succeeded in ways she didn't plan for. That too. They stayed like that, wrapped in each other, Madrid humming beyond the windows. Two men learning to love and delight, no longer afraid of who might see. 1 year later, the video appeared on their joint TikTok account. Yes, Carmen had convinced them to get TikTok on a Sunday morning. It was simple. Diego and Alejandro in their apartment, morning light streaming through the windows. Diego was making coffee in one of Alejandro's oversized shirts, hair a mess. Alejandro was behind him, arms wrapped around his waist, chin on his shoulder. The audio was a Spanish guitar cover of La Vie en Rose. The caption read, 1 year of choosing each other every day. Still the best decision we ever made. The video went viral within hours. 2 million views, thousands of comments. They're still together. I'm crying. The way he looks at him hasn't changed at all. Remember when we all thought it was fake? We're clowns. Relationship goals, actually, though. 1 year anniversary, and they're domestic as hell. I love this. At their desks in Ediciones Iberia, Diego now full editor, Alejandro still CEO, but slightly less intimidating since everyone knew he went home to cuddle his boyfriend. They read the comments together during lunch. The internet is obsessed with us, Diego observed. The internet, Alejandro said, stealing a bite of Diego's tortilla, has excellent taste. You're biased. Completely. He leaned across, kissed him right there in his glass-walled office where anyone could see. And I don't care who knows it. Diego kissed him back, smiling. What happened to the man who was terrified of being known? You happened. You made it worth it. Later, they'd have another meeting, another dinner, another night in their apartment with books scattered everywhere, and Diego's laughter filling the spaces Alejandro used to keep empty. They'd fight about common placement and whether to acquire that controversial memoir. They'd make love slowly, learning each other still, always discovering something new. But right now, in this moment, with Madrid stretched out below them and their future uncertain but shared, right now was perfect. The mentorship that started as a lie had become the truest thing in either of their lives. And if that wasn't a story worth telling, Diego didn't know what was. The end. Appreciate you watching. Hit subscribe, like, and share. See you in the next story.